Lesson 1, Topography Styles. In Publisher, you can apply different calligraphy-like styles to your font. Now, these next few commands cannot be applied to every single font. Certain commands are only available with certain fonts. We recommend that you kind of play around with the fonts to find out which ones have the stylistic sets available. First, if I click into this text box, I notice two contextual ribbons appear, my Drawing Tools Format ribbon and my Text Box Tools Format ribbon. If you click on your Text Box Tools Format contextual ribbon, you'll notice that in the far right we see Topography. Some of these commands are faded out. That's because these commands cannot be applied to the Arial font, which is what we're currently using. I can apply a drop cap. So if I click on the drop cap command, I can see the different ways that that first letter in the phrase can be dropped into the paper. Typically, you would use a drop cap at the beginning of a newspaper article, a newsletter article, or a drop cap at the beginning of a chapter in a book. All that means is that the first letter is very large, stylistic, and the rest of the text is normal. What I'm going to do is actually change my Trader News title from an Arial font to a Gabriola font. Gabriola, we can apply different topography commands to that. The Gabriola font also tends to run a little bit smaller, so I already know I'm going to have to make this text box larger in order for you to see it. So I'm just going to delete a couple of items off my publication. I'm going to make this text box a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to highlight my text. I can either change my font here in this pop-up font group, or I can use the font group on the ribbon. And again, I'm going to change this to Gabriola because I happen to know that that works very nicely with the stylistic topography groups. So here I have my new title with my new font, and I'm going to return to the text box tools. You've already seen the drop cap, how that can be used to apply a larger letter first. But now let's talk about the ligatures. So ligatures are these tiny lines above the letters. And it's really great for text in a body, not necessarily for text in a title, but you'll see how in this example, the F and I, we have this tiny line that connects the F and I. Down here there is no tiny line that connects the F and I. That line is called a ligature, and it actually does improve readability for body text. So you can decide if you want to apply the standard or if you don't want any in your text. Typically in titles you want to have no, typically in the body you want to have standard. Next to the ligatures we have the stylistic sets. So if I click this, notice that as I go down into these sections, the text gets a little bit more swoopy, almost as though someone's handwriting it. You can choose to make it as fancy or as straightforward as you prefer. I'm going to use this style just to kind of show off the swoops. So now you can see that my text has this very stylistic swoop on the font. if you choose to add a swash, that's actually this long line at the top of your text. So if I didn't have stylistic set applied, I go in here, made it plain, I can go back and add that swash. See how it added the little extra lines at the bottom of the text? So it's not overwhelming, but it still looks as though someone has handwritten it instead of typed it. Another option that you have for changing your font, you can use the little dialog box opener at the bottom of the Topography group. If you click this, it opens up the font dialog box. Here we can change our font again, make it bold, change the size. You can change the font color. You can also add superscripts or subscripts, so if you need to add, make the text a subscript or a superscript, you can. You can strike through it, so that way if you want it to show that it needs to be ignored, but you cannot remove it from the document, you can strike through it. And again, you can choose the different typography styles, swashing, or if you want to add or remove the ligatures. So it's your choice. Notice that we see the updated font down here at the bottom under sample. So it'll kind of show us how it will look after we've applied these settings. And that's it. So the takeaway here is you can use the Topography group to apply different styles and different features to your font. You will have to experiment with the different font types to see which ones will actually accept these settings.